This film tells the story of three friends who discovered a mysterious substance that endowed them with super abilities. Andrio Deathmare is an ordinary guy living with his parents. His father is a former firefighter who lives on insurance payments and often allows himself physical abuse. The mother is sick and lies on the bed. Andrio is a sociopath, so he has few friends and acquaintances. He has a cousin, Matt. One day he drives Andrio to school where he tries to shoot everything on camera. But not everyone likes it. The girl from the support group asks him to stop filming. He gets it from school bullies. On the way home, Matt calls him to a party, with difficulty, but Andrio agrees. Arriving home, he gets it from his father. Finding himself at a party in the evening, a non-drinker Andrio walks around with a camera and shoots everything he sees. There he meets Casey. The girl also shoots a video, but for a blog. One guy did not like the excessive attention from Andrio to his girlfriend. He angrily threatens him and pours beer on the camera. Once on the street, he puts the camera in order. A guy named Steve approaches him and offers to visit a very strange place that needs to be captured on camera. The three of them go into the forest, finding a strange cave and descending into it. The young people find a stone that looks like a meteorite flickering with light. Something comes from the stone and the camera starts to fail. Steve's nose is bleeding and he falls to the ground. The next scene takes place in the backyard of the house. Matt and Steve throw a ball at each other, but the ball flies along an unusual trajectory. But when the ball is thrown at Andrio, he stops it in front of his face. Such a demonstration of abilities pleases friends. Later, they practice their skills on a Lego set. The most successful in this Andrio. Trying to figure out where they got their super abilities from, they return to the cave during the day. However, the passage to the tunnel collapsed and the policeman asks them to leave here. On the way back, Steve asks Andrio about his father and finds out that he is an injured former firefighter and drinks every day. It turns out that Steve also has problems in the family. Parents are constantly fighting and most likely mom is cheating on her father. Before going to bed, Andrio conducts an experiment on camera levitation. At this time, his father is arguing on the phone with a doctor because of an ineffective medication. Guys understand that their abilities can be improved through constant exercises. Also, because of exercise, they become much stronger. Friends use their power for entertainment. For example, they raise the skirts of girls or scare the child with the help of a flying bear. Sitting in a cafe, Andrio tries to stick a fork into Matt's hand, but the fork bends and the hand remains unharmed, proving their strength. Going out to the parking lot of cars, Steve shows his abilities. He moves the car to another parking space by force of thought. The woman returning from the store cannot find her car. All the guys are laughing about it. Returning home by car in the rain, our friends are overwhelmed with emotions from their antics. But the fun of the guys is disrupted by the driver behind the wheel of a Jeep who was constantly honking. Because of this, the guys were driving faster and faster. Andrio, wanting to continue the entertainment with one movement of his hand, without calculating his strength, throws the car into the lake. They quarrel at the beginning, but then miraculously they get the driver alive and send him to the hospital. After the incident, they decide to adhere to certain rules so as not to injure anyone else, because their strength continues to grow. The next day, the friends meet at a sawmill where Steve demonstrates his ability to fly. Matt and Andrio also practice levitation with him. Sometime later, the guys are quietly flying in the clouds. We were even able to play football in the sky. Passionate about the game, they are almost shot down by a passenger plane. Steve loses consciousness due to the sound wave and falls down, but Andrio catches his friend during and smoothly lands on the ground. Steve is grateful to Andrio for saving him. In the evening, resting guys admit to each other that it was the best day of their lives. In the morning, sitting in the classroom with textbooks, friends open their desires to each other where they would like to visit. Andrio wants to go to Tavis. He is attracted by the beauty of the mountains, monuments, and monks who have reached a great level of enlightenment. Matt says that it's mom's birthday and he flies off to Casey. And Andrio and Steve, sitting on the roof of a skyscraper, are having a heartfelt conversation, and at one point Steve decides that Andrio just needs to meet a girl by performing at a talent contest. Dressed up in a suit, Andrio begins his performance among the many contestants. Matt comes out, starts the audience, and calls Andrio, who accidentally drops a deck of cards and scatters it, but in fact it is not accidental. Andrio makes the audience admire and laugh. Immediately after the contest, they find themselves at a party with a huge number of people. Everyone admires Andrio. He meets Monica and has fun with her, entertaining her and the crowd with accurate hits of balls and glasses. Monica kisses Rio and takes him away to retire, but he becomes ill at the most inappropriate moment. Rio catches the spider and lifts it off the floor and then dismembers it with the power of thought. The father reproaches Rio for the camera he bought worth $500 at a time when the mother needs money for medicine. But the matter does not end with reproaches, and his father first humiliates him with bad words and then attacks him. This time Rio did not tolerate the beating and pushed his father away from him. Then he soars into the sky and Steve finds him there. He was able to find Rio with the help of his senses. Steve, seeing the bruises on his friend's face, realized that it was his father. He asked Rio to come down because of the great danger, but a strong lightning strike interrupts Steve's life. At Steve's funeral, Matt looks suspiciously at Rio, realizing that he is involved in this. Rio comes to the place of the meteorite fall, which is already overgrown with plants. He stands in the place where it all began. While at school, the students laugh at Rio and he understands that the girl told everything about that night, but this time he does not want to tolerate ridicule and pulls out 3 teeth from one student by the roots with his strength. Matt flies to Rio's house and asks him to stop mindlessly using the force. They have a conflict going on. Matt tries to hit Rio, but he stops his fist with the power of his mind, showing that he is stronger than Matt. Rio comes to the pharmacy for medicine for his mother. It turns out that his mother has a debt that needs to be repaid to get the medicine, but Rio does not have such money and he decides to take the money from the local guys. Dressed in a fire suit and wearing a mask on his face, he approached 4 guys in the yard. When he ordered them to give him money, the guys would recognize him by his voice and backpack. Having scattered everyone with ease, he takes the money. But there was very little money. Then he robs the gas station by throwing the seller, takes the money. But the tanker comes to his senses and runs out after him with a gun. Rio knocks out the gun with his mind, which leads to an explosion of the gas tank, after which Rio ends up in the hospital with burns. When Rio was unconscious, his father visited him. He cries over the bed and then starts blaming him for his mother's death. It turns out that while he was looking for Rio, his mother had an attack and she died. The father is waiting for an apology from Rio, calling him an egoist. At this moment, Rio opens his eyes and goes berserk. On the other side of town, Matt's nose starts bleeding profusely and he tells Casey that he feels that something has happened to Rio. At this time, the consequences of the explosion in the hospital are shown on local television. Guessing that Rio is there, Matt and his girlfriend go to the hospital. There are a lot of policemen everywhere and the road is blocked, but they hardly manage to get to the place. Once at the hospital building, they saw how Rio, soaring at a high altitude, throws his father, accusing him that only thanks to him he became so angry. Matt is forced to reveal himself and save his father's life. After getting into the car, Matt and Casey chase Rio, who carries house and destruction around him. Having shot down the helicopter, Rio lifts his brother's car into the air. Throwing it on the roof of a skyscraper, Matt manages to save Casey before the car falls from a great height and crashes. It's obvious that Rio has gone crazy. Matt tries to reason with and stop his brother by offering to fly somewhere before it's too late, but Rio refuses, calling himself an alpha predator, and continues to destroy everything in his path. Surrounded by police on the offer to surrender, he attacks and turns over cars along with people. The reinforcements arrive and open fire, and Rio stops the bullets in the air with the last of his strength. Then he turns the cars over again. Rio tries to destroy a skyscraper with his strength and Matt, seeing no other way out, pierces him with a huge spear. Matt flies away from the sneaking special forces and goes to Tavis because his cousin dreamed of being there. He records a video addressing the deceased Rio, asking for forgiveness for killing him and promises to get better. This is where the film ends. How do you like the movie? Write your opinion in the comments.